Not all futures can be cyberpunk and roses. In fact, most cyberpunk futures aren't that bright to begin with. Not a lot of roses. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. This is Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Come with me to the dark, bleak, and often dystopian and/or post-apocalyptic futures as we count down the top 10 scary superhero futures. But before we dive in, a word from this video's sponsor. From Mad Cave Studios is a new dark and twisted monthly series you won't want to miss. By masters of horror Cullen Bunn, writer on Oni Press's The Sixth Gun and Marvel's Wolverine, and Andrea Moody, artist for Image, Marvel, and DC, with letters by Russ Wooten. Dr. Shaw is a doctor just trying to do some good in the world who finds himself suddenly plagued by past memories after an encounter with an out-of-control patient. Nick runs, joining Doctors Without Borders and heading for Central America, but his past follows him, haunting him there. With a serial killer on the loose in the small town of Desante, Honduras, Nick's hidden memories begin to rush back more frequently and vividly. Was Nick meant to be there? Is this all a part of the killer's plan? And what has Nick been repressing, and why? Find out in A Legacy of Violence, described by writer Cullen Bunn as something readers will be surprised by. A Legacy of Violence is available for pre-order now online and in stores October 5th. You can find the link in our video description box. Number 10. Future State. In the Future State reality, we saw the DC universe get pretty bleak. This was a world where Bruce Wayne's Batman was initially presumed dead, while Gotham had become a police state city, where all masks, heroes, and villains were outlawed, where the Justice League was only really a team of co-workers, no longer a group of close friends, never mind a family, where the Flash family was shattered, and where the Teen Titans Academy was destroyed, and the world became an apocalyptic wasteland thanks to the threat of the Four Horsemen. In all its bleakness, there were some bright moments and spots, but it seemed the farther into this future that we went, the darker things got. What makes a future scary? What superheroes do you think have the worst luck with awful and terrifying futures? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Number 9. Last Night on Earth. Last Night on Earth is a bizarre and wonderful story that features a post-apocalyptic wasteland where Batman, or a cloned version of Bruce Wayne, wanders Gotham, laid to waste by nuclear warfare thanks to a mysterious villain known only as Omega. This version of Batman is also joined on his journey by none other than his longtime nemesis, the Joker, who is reduced to being a head in a jar, having previously been dismembered by Alfred himself. Joker and Batman go on all sorts of weird adventures, including one where they fight against giant-sized babies, which were actually light constructs created by those who now had taken and wielded the Green Lantern's rings, but who obviously, weren't really chosen to do so. I mean, I feel like if you're making giant babies to fight someone, it probably shouldn't have been a Green Lantern. In my mind. I mean, I guess it's creative. Gotta give them that. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 8. Age of Apocalypse. What would the world be like if Apocalypse succeeded in conquering it? Well, as you may have expected, it would not be great. While Apocalypse, currently in the comics, is not seeking to dominate and rule the world, but is actually focusing on his family, currently kind of in retirement, we should maybe just be grateful for that. Even though, honestly, right now, I think the mutants could actually use his help. Back in the days when Apocalypse was known as one of the most terrifying mutant villains around, we got to explore and imagine a world known as Age of Apocalypse. This alternate Earth, known as Earth 295, is one where Professor Charles Xavier was accidentally killed by his own time-traveling son, Legion, which resulted in a divergence from the main timeline. Because Charles wasn't around to form his own X-Men team when Apocalypse came, the world fell. Here, Magneto instead leads his own mutant team, acting as one of the last to stand against Apocalypse. But unfortunately, it's not enough to save this reality from being a horrifying terror show, where many of our favorite heroes end up pulled over to Apocalypse's side of the conflict. Number 7. Earth 3. Earth 3 is the reality that belongs to the Reverse Justice League. Not the Bizarro version, but the Crime Syndicate. They are basically an evil version of the Justice League we know and love from the main continuity. But instead of being a one-for-one of every character on the team, each member actually has their own more evil counterpart, not necessarily being an alternate version of them, but in some cases they are. Wonder Woman is replaced by Lois Lane as a manipulative and evil superwoman. Batman is replaced by his older alternate sibling, Thomas Jr., who killed both his parents and the younger Bruce, as Owlman. And Kal-El, I think we still say it Kal-El, is the last vengeful son of Krypton known as Ultraman, but his Kal-El is spelled with just 2 L's instead of E-L. And that's only some of the impressively villainous roster who basically all rule Earth, using fear to motivate the people to do as they say, at least in the original crime syndicate. It's different people now. Not all of them are still there. Times change, and when you're evil, people are going to usurp you and you'll probably end up dying at some point. That's just how it goes. Number 6. Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past is a mutant-based horror future where all mutants basically end up persecuted and held in camps where they're marked with M tattoos and forced to live out their days. This was a future reality that was avoided in terms of it becoming the main reality future when Rachel Summers in the comics sends Wolverine back in time to stop it from happening. Rachel herself happens to be from a version of the Days of Future Past reality, the main one known as Earth 811, of which now there are actually more than one version of that even alternate reality, just to really confuse you. An alternate version of the Days of Future Past reality, known as Earth 1191, is also the one that Lucas Bishop hails from, where Layla Miller also gets captured and marked with her own M tattoo, which she still has over her eye to this day, from her journey there with Jamie Madrox during the X-Men Second Coming crossover event. Number 5. Ultron Won. What if Ultron Won is an episode in the animated What If series, where we got to reimagine what the world could have been like in the cinematic universe if Ultron had actually won his fight against the Avengers, merging with the body that would become Vision and pretty much decimating all life on Earth and beyond. Only a few survivors remain, and even they struggle to survive and save the day. The other question becomes, who exactly are they even saving the day for? Most of humanity at this point is pretty much gone. It's an awful future where even the Guardians of the Multiverse, later assembled, even struggle to actually straight up defeat Ultron, instead having to be satisfied with merely containing him. Which, I mean, good enough for now, but who knows, that Ultron could just be like busting out and come in and be like, hey, I'm back. I feel like that's gonna happen at some point. And if it doesn't, I'll be a little disappointed, to be honest. Number 4. DCeased. DCeased is DC's apocalyptic zombie-like world, but where instead of it being specifically a zombie outbreak, it's more of an outbreak of the anti-life equation. The anti-life equation affects all the heroes and villains it infects by causing them to basically lose control and be filled with rage. This is the reality where an anti-life infected Wonder Woman goes on a rampage and literally tears Vandal Savage in half. This is also the same reality where the tragic story of Batman and Alfred is actually reversed compared to the main continuity. Instead of Bruce outliving his father figure and his trusted butler Alfred, Alfred is actually the one who survives him. Also, Alfred is a badass in this reality. Alfred is a badass in all realities though, so facts. Number 3. Earth Z. Sometimes referred to as Earth Z, Earth 2149 is the reality where a zombified sentry first caused an outbreak to happen. The outbreak would not only threaten the general public of this whole universe, but also go on to infect many superpowered beings as well, both heroes and villains, and it would also kind of spill into other universes too. It's widely considered to be one of the darkest realities in all of comics. This is a reality where Black Panther, T'Challa, is slowly devoured by his former colleagues and friends. Freaks me out every time. Every time I think about it, I'm like, no! Where Spider-Man ends up eating both his dear Aunt May and beloved MJ. It's a really messed up and bleak reality, basically, and every time I go back to it, I'm almost immediately forced to recoil back from these issues and this world. That's just how gruesome it is. It's really intense. Number 2. Ruins. Oof. I cannot believe this one is not at the top of this list. Honestly though, it was a hard decision to make when it came down to these last few. Some might not think of Marvel's Ruins as a future as it is set in modern day sort of, but it's still an alternate reality that never came to pass in the main continuity based on the original world of Marvel, which actually, you know, started technically back in the 60s, although that's kind of weird. So I think we can still consider Ruins like taking a glimpse through a dark crystal ball into an impossibly cruel potential future for our heroes and our villains. In this reality, superpowers are interpreted more literally, meaning that they are less blessings than curses that cause people great harm, with them becoming more monsters, prisoners, victims, or just like straight up villains than actual altruistic heroes most days. Number 1. Batman in Bethlehem. Batman in Bethlehem has to be one of the worst futures out there, but that is also part of what makes it so compelling and so interesting. In this reality, Damian Wayne takes up the cape and cowl, following in his father's footsteps, but after the death of Nightwing, who actually went on to become Batman before Damian did. Damian decides the best way to approach being Batman because of Nightwing's death is by doing things kind of his own way. In other words, he no longer holds himself back from killing. And more than that, in this reality, Damian also makes a deal with the devil to basically protect Gotham no matter what, offering his soul in exchange for immortality and superior healing powers, which allows him to act as Gotham's vengeance pretty much forever. Or at least for as long as, you know, Gotham lasts. Eventually, Gotham ends up confronting a zombie-like outbreak when most of its citizens become infected with Joker venom and the monster serum. Gotham would then end up quarantined before being nuked, wiping it off the face of the map, with Damian surviving the strike due to his immortality and healing factor that he had bargained for. What scary superhero future would you never want to travel to? What alternate scary future would you like to see turned around and saved? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you to Mad Cave Studios for sponsoring this video, and to you for watching and sticking around till the end. We appreciate you. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. I'll see you next time, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.